If I had $5 to $10 million to invest to buy a business, where would I spend that money and why? In today's video, I'm going to show you a tier list of companies / industries that I like and that I don't like. I don't normally do videos like this, but my social media guy told me that these types of videos are going viral, so here we are. My top choice for where to invest would be companies with a subscription-based revenue model, ideally for essential services. There are really two interesting examples here that might or might not be on many people's radars. The first one is actually insurance brokerage. Being an insurance carrier is a whole other bag of worms. However, being an insurance brokerage really has a lot of compelling and interesting aspects to it. First off, it's definitely an asset-light type of business. Secondly, subscription recurring revenue type business model. Third, the way that you earn money is purely off of the risk that the insurance carrier is taking. That's not to say that there's no risk for being an insurance broker, because there absolutely is. But in terms of the boxes that I would look to check in the most interesting of industries, there's a lot to like about an insurance brokerage. And for this reason, I would put this in the S category. There are a lot of reasons why I like an insurance brokerage. However, there are some downsides as well. I would say the primary downside is that it's not very scalable. Even though you can have one agent that works with numerous different companies and is earning a lot in brokerage commissions, there's an upper limit, and you still need that personal relationship in order to be able to write those policies. It's not as scalable, certainly, as something like software, where you create it and then as many people in the world can use it as you have the people that buy it. Even with the acknowledgement that a brokerage is not extremely scalable, I would still put it in the S category. The next type of business model that I want to talk about is repeat business, a business that offers a product or service that you can't just buy once and it lasts a lifetime, but it needs to be bought on a recurring basis. A great example that checks the boxes for repeat business, but also convenience, would be a drive-through coffee shop. Throughout the course of the Four Pillars history, we've looked at a lot of different retail type locations, food, restaurant, et cetera, et cetera. Whenever we've looked at companies, us purchasing the QSR opportunity was something like a third of the value as compared to what an operator of a drive-through coffee shop placed purely on the land alone. Here we had a cash flowing opportunity. We weren't purchasing the land, it was valued at X. However, a coffee shop operator, just for the land, was going to pay 3 times more for the opportunity to build a store there. I think that's very compelling to show how attractive this type of business model is. And the reason why I say the convenience element is just because, at least in the US, anything, in my opinion, right now, with a convenience angle to it is extremely attractive. I mean, everybody wants to just, sit at home and have their goods and services delivered to them. That's why I think a coffee shop like that is such a great avenue in which to deploy capital. Dental offices and landscaping. Those are both two examples of a service that is needed to be performed periodically over time. Dentistry obviously isn't a convenience type company because you really can't do that level of teeth cleaning yourself, but landscaping certainly is. Mowing your yard and taking care of the grass and whatnot. Those are 3 that immediately come to my mind for this category. Because of the repeat nature of the revenue, as well as the unlikely situation in which those services would not be needed, I would put those types of companies in the A category. An industry or business type that I wouldn't be as interested in investing in would be a cyclical business, or one in which there are project-oriented revenues. So those are kind of 2 different categories, but actually oftentimes they are representative of the same type of industry or company. Cyclical, I think, is easy to understand. The economy cycles, and companies that move in tandem with those ups and downs are not as attractive because you prefer stable cash flows. If you look at project-oriented revenues, those oftentimes have that up and down behavior as well, because no matter how well you plan, projects don't go exactly as you would like them to, and you might have a great month in the month of May and expect that June's going to be great, and then you get a call and they say, well, we can't start the project until July, and now all of a sudden you're left holding the bag. In terms of actual types of companies that would fit this bill, the easiest example is construction. I mean, not only is construction cyclical, but it also is typically project-oriented type revenue model. I say that this is a lower tier category. However, I have to mention a disclaimer, if you will. You know, a lot of people that have private jets and helicopters and lead lavish lifestyles, they've spent their careers in the construction industry. It's not as if you can look at construction and say that's an awful industry. It's just one that has a type of risk that some people are going to be okay with, other people are not going to be okay with. Whenever you look at what we're trying to do, which is to build a portfolio of stable companies in terms of revenues and earnings, that's why we probably wouldn't rate construction as higher. And for that reason, we would put it in the D category. Another category I want to talk about are companies or industries in which it is difficult to differentiate yourself vis-a-vis your competitors. Let's talk about a lot of business services and home services where there are countless firms out there, and when it comes to who you're going to pick, like on the consumer side, sometimes it's just whoever calls you back or the first name that pops up in a Google search. I think a good example here on the business side would be marketing services. If you look for a marketing firm, I mean, there are countless marketing firms out there. And also, a lot of times whenever you talk to the marketing firm, you hear a very similar pitch. It's, we're a full service agency, we can do everything for you, and we have all this experience and whatnot. And you talk to somebody else and like, oh, well, we're a full service agency, we can do everything that you want, and just kind of thinking to yourself, well, everybody seems to be doing everything possibly that I need, and they're all amazing. You know, how am I going to choose? Now, this isn't a knock on marketing firms in particular, or even business services and home services in general, because there really are a lot of good firms out there, and most of the firms are good. From the decision maker's standpoint, it can just be difficult to decide which firms are good and which firms aren't so good. That's the challenge, and that's why we would rate these types of services, be it business or home, in the C category. I don't know what the cool kids did at your high school, but in my high school, the cool kids all got invited to Tupperware parties, and I didn't. So for that reason alone, I am very biased against any type of multi-level marketing company. Well, okay, let me step that back for just a moment. Nobody in my high school went to Tupperware parties. However, I still don't like multi-level marketing companies. It's not that I don't think that the value is in the products or the services that they sell. I definitely think that there are a lot of good products and services that are sold via MLM. However, it's just not a business model that we would want to invest in. If you look at our company, you know, 4 Pillars Investors, you know, our tagline is building a new foundation for growth. If you look at MLM, in order to grow, you need to add more and more tiers of essentially sales reps that continually have to recruit more and more people. I mean, eventually the growth is going to stop. On top of that, we're not talking about a new industry that has nascent demand that hasn't been satisfied. You know, a lot of times these are personal care products or other types of products that we have all used and we all have options for. It's just a slightly different angle or a little bit more convenient because going into the home of your friend as opposed to going into a retail store. Regardless, it's just not a model that I think works very well for us, many others as well. Not to knock it for everyone, just from our personal perspective, it's not an industry that we would pursue. And for that reason, we put it in the F category. There aren't a lot of business textbooks that I think really have stood the test of time. However, one that definitely falls into this category would be the book by Michael Porter that talks about competitive structure within industry and why some industries are naturally more profitable than other industries. I could do a whole video on that book alone. I'll just say that picking industries that, according to Porter's 5 forces, tend to be more profitable, definitely has appeal to us. One particular example are companies with high barriers to entry. Given our track record and our portfolio, that immediately points us to manufacturing, especially highly specialized manufacturing. If you look at manufacturing, you got, not only do you have expensive equipment, like CNC machines and presses and many other types of machinery, but you also have capabilities that you have to develop within your company in order to make products. It's not just as simple as, oh, we need this really complex product, just throw a piece of metal in the CNC machine, we'll program it, and that'll be that. There are secondary operations. There are sometimes whenever you're machining metal or machining some other material, once it gets into the shape, it warps or it shrinks or it expands. And now all of a sudden you have to figure out how to get it to be the right dimensions. And those are the types of capabilities that have to be developed. And so when you look at manufacturing, a lot of people will say, oh yeah, the CapEx, the assets required, et cetera, are, that's why we don't like it. And I get that. But the barriers to entry in manufacturing, the asset intensive part of that is really just one angle. The other angle is all those capabilities that you have to develop internally that are performed by people, not machines, that actually, in my view, represent a higher barrier to entry. In today's world, the only challenge is getting the capital to buy equipment. You can get the capital, but in a lot of the manufacturing that we do, the machinery is only one piece, and it's often the smaller piece, with the human element being much more important. For those reasons, that I would put highly specialized manufacturing in the B category. One industry of recent interest for us is franchising. And of course we would have interest in being the franchisor, but we would also have interest in being the franchisee. And the reason for that is because the best franchisors often have a playbook.
Is the playbook.
And if you follow that playbook, typically the franchisee can be very successful. We've looked at a lot of different brands, a lot of different concepts in different geographies and whatnot. What we've found is the best franchisees are the ones that follow the playbook that's pushed by the franchisor. And also what we found are that, generally speaking, the franchisees that do the worst are the ones that don't follow the playbook. Now for me, that's really a head scratcher. If I'm going to buy a franchise, I personally would want to make sure that I like what the franchisor is doing. If I don't like what the franchisor is doing, then I should just go start my own company. As shocking or surprising as that might be, that's really how we think about whether or not a particular franchise concept would be interesting to us or not, is we look at the playbook, we determine if we think that that playbook is a good one, is one that we would want to follow. We look at the management of the franchisor, several other factors like that. But if we can buy into that, then it usually is very attractive to us. And then on top of that, one of the things that gets me the most excited about business is a consolidation opportunity. I mean, I love buy and build strategies, and buy and build is definitely very prevalent in the franchise space. And combined with having the playbook as well as a fertile ground for a buy and build strategy, those are two reasons why franchising is very interesting to us. That being said, not all franchises are alike. There are some that I like and some that really wouldn't be a good fit for us. Now, we've done a bigger video on this, so you might not be surprised to hear this, but one concept I actually like is Subway. Subway has a lot of compelling aspects to it right now. Not only do I feel like the brand is on the upswing, but they recently announced a sale to Roark Capital. Roark Capital is, in my view, a great buyer for this brand. They have tremendous experience in franchising, not just food, but other concepts. And on top of that, it's a highly fragmented system. And so for a group like Four Pillars, who likes growth, who likes a buy and build strategy, Subway could really be a great opportunity if the right package or the right collection of units were to become available. Subway is actually the largest food franchise in terms of units, which many people don't know. That fun fact and many more are actually in a full video that I did on Subway that's available on my channel as well. On the flip side, there are some franchises that really wouldn't be of great interest to us, and this might be shocking to hear, but one franchise that I wouldn't even consider pursuing is Chick-fil-A. I'm sure you're like, Nick, that's crazy. That's one of the most successful QSR franchises. I mean, their store volumes are $5, $8, $10 million in some circumstances. How could you say no to that? The reason why I'd say no is because typically the owner or the franchisee is only able to purchase that one store, and they also typically have to work, largely full-time in that store. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, those guys can make a great living. However, it just doesn't really fit with the private equity model. I mean, might that change? Who knows? I mean, if it does change, I would quickly change my tune as to whether or not we would want to pursue that. But given those constraints right now, that would be why we wouldn't have any interest in pursuing Chick-fil-A, even though if you just look at the economics of it, it would clearly be a home run if you can get into the system. So I call myself the most boring guy in private equity, but anytime you put together a list like this, it's sure to generate some positive comments and some negative comments as well. If you like this list, be sure to email me or put it in the comments. And if you don't like this list, then I'll make sure I give you my social media guy's email address, and you can just let him know that you didn't like this too much. All joking aside, what did I miss? Are there any industries out there or specific examples of companies that you think should belong in that S category or maybe that F category? Let me know. Would love to hear it. As always, like and subscribe, and look forward to seeing you again.